Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the latest Genshin Impact tier list for version 5.7, fresh as of June 2025. We're breaking down the top 5-star and 4-star characters, sorting out who shines as main DPS, sub-DPS, and support. And yeah, we're even throwing in the all-important C0 rating for each one. If you've been grinding and wondering who's really worth your resin or Primogems right now, stick around. This guide's got you covered. And hey, the best part? We're updating this tier list daily, so you'll always be in the loop with the freshest info. No stale builds or outdated picks here. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just hopping back into Teyvat, this video will help you make the smartest choices for your team. Let's jump in and see who's crushing it this patch. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking characters in Genshin Impact. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: main DPS, Razor, Dehya, Xinyan, and Aloy; sub-DPS, Xinyan, Traveler Geo, Amber, Traveler Anemo, and Traveler Hydro; support Noelle, Chongyun, Lisa, and Xinyan. Alright, so you've probably heard about those god tier characters that make you feel like the absolute legend of Teyvat, right? Well, buckle up, because now we're diving into the D rank club. The squad that's kinda like that friend who shows up to the party, but everyone's not exactly sure why. These characters have their moments, but let's just say they're not carrying the team on their backs anytime soon. Starting off with Razor as a main damage dealer, or main damage per second character, he's a pretty unique dude. His elemental burst lets him spam that super conduct reaction pretty consistently by mixing electro and physical damage. Sounds cool on paper, but honestly, he kinda falls short compared to the heavy hitters. You'll get some solid physical damage, but don't expect fireworks every second. Next up is Dehya. She's got a bit of a rough time as a main damage dealer because her elemental skill and elemental burst don't pack much punch without stacking multiple buffs. Plus, she's a thirsty one, needs a ton of energy to keep her burst going, and unless you invest in her constellations, which are basically upgrades, you're not going to see her true potential shine. So yeah, she's more of a work in progress. Now, Xinyan is interesting because her elemental burst can dish out some decent nuke damage if you're rocking a physical damage build. But here's the catch, her scaling is split between attack and defense, and that split messes with her performance. It's like trying to be two different people at once. You gotta pick one or the other, and neither option makes her truly outstanding. Aloy, the outsider from another universe, can boost her normal attack damage with her elemental skill, but only if those little bomblets she shoots hit the pellets to trigger the pyro infusion. The downside, no constellations at all, so her damage ceiling is stuck at a certain point forever, kind of like being on a treadmill that never speeds up. She's fun, but limited. Switching gears to sub-damage dealers, Xinyan pops up again here, but with a slightly different vibe. Her elemental skill applies a weak off-field pyro damage over time. It's decent for reactions like Burgeon, but honestly, it's inconsistent, kind of like a firework that fizzes instead of pops. If you manage to get her second constellation, which guarantees a critical hit from her elemental burst, she gets a little more reliable for quick swap team comps. So there's a silver lining. The Traveler Geoform is pretty neat for sub-DPS. They pack a punch with high elemental skill damage and can block enemies using their elemental skill and elemental burst. Plus, hitting the fourth constellation boosts their elemental burst recharge rate, which means more spammy bursts. A solid choice if you want some defense and offense sprinkled together. Moving on to support characters, Noelle tries to juggle healing and shielding, but here's the kicker. She has to be on the field and have her shield up to heal, which feels like a full-time job. On top of that, her elemental skill has a long cooldown, so she's not always available when you need her. She's a bit like a slow cooker. The results are good, but takes time and effort. And then we have Chongyun, who's basically the hype man for melee characters. His elemental skill boosts attack speed and infuses cryo damage, which can be pretty clutch. Plus, he has a high energy recharge rate, so you get that cryo infusion almost constantly. But honestly, he's more like a sidekick than the star of the show. So yeah, these D rank characters have their quirks and niche moments. They're not your frontline heroes, but with the right team setup, some patience, and a bit of love, they can still surprise you once in a while. Just don't expect them to carry your Spiral Abyss runs anytime soon. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: main DPS, Eula, Mizuki, Yanfei, Heizu, Klee, Kaveh, Komi, Freminet, and Ningguang. Sub-DPS, Kachina, Kaya, Dehya, Lisa, Chongyun, and Sayu. Support like Dahlia, Kiki, Barbara, Traveler, Electro, Rosaria, Candice, and Dory. Alright, let's chat about some characters who are definitely not the wow of the party, but still manage to bring a little something to the table. Welcome to the C rank main damage dealers, sub damage dealers, and supports. These folks aren't topping any leaderboards, but with the right love and team, they can still make some noise. First up, Eula, our Cryo Claymore Queen, who basically lives for her elemental burst. If you hit that burst just right, especially on enemies already affected by superconduct, you're looking at a serious damage explosion. The catch? If your burst misses or fails to crit, most of her damage just evaporates into thin air. So, timing and RNG are her frenemies. Then we have Mizuki, who's kind of like the squad's Anemo hype woman. She boosts swirl reaction damage and can heal a bit, which is pretty clutch in certain team comps. But here's the kicker: while she's on her elemental skill, she can't even normal attack. It's like being able to talk but not eat at the same time. Plus, her elemental burst has some limits, so she's a bit situational, but shines with her constellations. Yanfei is that reliable pyro-ranged fighter who likes to spam normal and charged attacks. Damage-wise, she's your average 4-star, nothing too crazy, but solid. She does gulp down stamina pretty fast when charged attacking, but lucky for you, unlocking her first constellation helps ease that stamina drain. Handy, right? Now, Heizu is an Anemo Catalyst user who's all about swirling and critting for damage. He can be a decent driver for the Viridescent Venera artifact set or a quick burst damage guy if you're into swap heavy playstyles. His elemental skill deals great swirl damage, but the rest of his kit doesn't really pack the punch you might want for a main damage dealer. Let's talk Klee, the adorable but slightly clunky Pyro Bomb Thrower. She primarily attacks with normal and charged attacks, clearing crowds like a boss, but mastering her requires some serious rotation practice. Not everyone has the patience for her, but when played right, she's a tiny explosion of joy. Moving to sub-damage dealers, Kachina quietly deals decent off-field damage and has some cool utility. She can equip the Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City artifact set, which is super powerful but only usable by Natlan characters. Talk about exclusive club perks. Kaya is your go-to cryo dude for fast elemental skill cooldowns and solid freeze setups. Thanks to his second constellation, his skill sticks around longer on your main damage dealer, giving your freeze or superconduct reactions a boost. Damage-wise, he's not breaking records, but he's consistent. On the support side, Chi-Chi is that healer who can keep your team alive like a pro, but her cooldowns are pretty long. Plus, she's not great at building up her energy to spam that big elemental burst healing, so timing is key. Meanwhile, Barbara brings burst healing and an aura to sustain the whole team. Her elemental skill and burst are costly in terms of cooldowns and energy, but if you get her constellation level 6, she can actually bring back fallen teammates to full health. Pretty clutch in a pinch. So yeah, these C rank characters might not be your main flex in the Spiral Abyss, but with the right team, constellations, and a sprinkle of patience, they add solid layers to your gameplay. They're like that reliable backup dancer who doesn't steal the spotlight but keeps the show running smooth. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: main DPS, Wanderer, Yoimiya, Sephiroth, Ito, Sino, Keking, Aoife, Sucrose, and Noel Laho. Sub-DPS, Albedo, Ayato, Kokomi, Toma, Traveler Dendro, Lynette, and Zhongli. Support, Yunjin, Sara, Goro, Kirara, Mika, Mizuki, Shizuwini, Seiyu, Toma, and Dehya. Let's be honest, B-rank characters in Genshin Impact are like that dependable friend who's not always stealing the spotlight, but man, they really know how to hold their own when it counts. They're solid, sometimes underrated, and with the right setup, they can totally surprise you. So let's break down some of these gems, starting with Wanderer. This guy's normal attacks hit a wide area and even home in on enemies. Pretty handy, right? Plus, his elemental skill lets him float mid-air, which makes exploring Teyvat a breeze. But heads up, he really needs good supports backing him up, especially if you haven't invested in his constellations yet. Now, Yoimiya is all about those fiery, normal attacks, thanks to her pyro infusion from her elemental skill. She hits pretty hard, but she's kind of squishy and can get interrupted easily, so you'll want supports that boost her attack speed and help her resist those pesky enemy stuns. Cephos is a bit of a wildcard. He can spam charged attacks or normal attacks depending on his energy level, which gives you options, but his charged attacks make him stand still, leaving him open to enemy hits. And since he's a 4-star, his base stats aren't the flashiest, so don't expect him to solo your hardest content. If you're into big claymore hits, Itto is your guy. His charged attacks and elemental skill scale super high, especially when his burst is active. But beware, you gotta keep his burst up to do damage, which means you can't just switch him out willy-nilly. Also, he demands some serious investment in weapons and artifacts to really shine. Electro main fans meet Cyno. He's solid for electro carries that love dendro reactions like Aggravate and Hyper Bloom. But like Itto, his burst is his damage engine, so if you switch him out mid-burst, you lose out. Plus, he's not great at resisting interruptions, so you'll need to get your timing down to avoid getting stunned. Keeking has always been a versatile fighter, and with the recent Dendro addition, she stepped up her game. Whether you build her for aggravate reactions or full physical damage, she's competitive and fun to play, especially if you enjoy speedy, fluid combat. Then there's Aoife, who's a bit like a younger sibling to Sucrose and Mizuki. He's great at swirling electro-charged reactions and even throws in some healing and the normal attacks. He's pretty friendly for free-to-play players, but keep in mind he's tied to a specific team setup and archetype. Speaking of Sucrose, she's the queen of on-field crowd control and buffs your whole team's elemental mastery, which is huge for reaction-heavy comps. Plus, she can group enemies together like a pro, making her an MVP for clearing mobs fast. Moving to sub-damage dealers, Albedo is your Geo go-to for constant off-field damage thanks to his elemental skill field. But watch out, it can get destroyed easily by bosses or map mechanics. Also, his best weapon is sadly no longer available, which makes gearing him a bit trickier. Ayato rocks a big elemental burst with wide coverage, perfect for steady hydro application. His burst lasts long and can kick off your rotation smoothly, making him a great sub-DPS or burst damage character. Kokomi brings a persistent hydro application off a field with her elemental skill, which you can refresh with her burst. When paired with the Clam artifact set, her heals deal decent off-field damage, which is neat if you want healing and some DPS in one package. Toma is a fire starter who applies pyro with his elemental burst, ideal for triggering burgeon reactions. Constellations help a lot here. Second constellation extends his burst duration, and fourth fixes his energy problems, making him more consistent. For supports, Yunjin is the go-to if you want to buff your team's normal attack damage. Her elemental burst cranks up damage, especially if your team has diverse elements, and her max constellation gives a nice boost to normal attack speed, perfect for teams relying on rapid normal attacks. Then there's Sarah, who buffs party attack stats and becomes a fantastic electro support once you unlock her full constellation suite. The downside? She's a bit clunky to use early on and drains energy quickly, so patience is key. Goru shines for Geo teams focused on defense. He buffs Geo damage and defense, provides interruption resistance, and can even heal with the right constellations. He's niche but excellent in his role. Lastly, Kirara is your shield specialist, perfect for blocking bloom cores or just keeping your characters safe in general. And Mika offers physical damage or attack speed buffs plus burst healing, though his sustained healing is on the slower side. So yeah, B-rank characters might not be the flashiest or easiest to use, but with the right builds and team synergy, they definitely earn their spot in your lineup. Sometimes, the dependable sidekick wins the day. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right. Main DPS, Raiden, Xiao, Tartaglia, Diluc, Ayato, Ganyu, and Tignari. Sub-DPS, Nilou, Venti, Ganyu, Mona, Traveler Pyro, Beidou, Kolle, Rosaria, and Sucrose. Support, Lanyan, Kokomi, Faruzan, Venti, Diona, Yao Yao, Charlotte, Layla, and Shinobu. Let's dive into the A-rank characters. The ones who walk the fine line between absolute game changer and downright terrifying damage dealers. These folks bring the firepower and utility that make your enemies wish they never spawned. Starting with Raiden Shogun, her elemental burst is basically a 7-second damage hurricane where she stays on field, smacking enemies with insane electro damage. Plus, her second constellation lets her ignore enemy defense, which means she absolutely melts bosses like they're made of paper. If you want raw power, she's one of the top tier picks without question. Then there's Xiao, the high-risk, high-reward polearm master. His elemental burst amps up his damage big time, but it comes at the cost of his own health, so you gotta be careful. His normal attacks combined with his elemental skill let him pull off insane combos, but he definitely needs supports who can heal and keep him offensive. Tartaglia, aka Child, brings that hydro elemental madness with his Riptide attacks, which especially shine against groups. He's still the best at triggering Vaporize, which can utterly wreck enemy teams if you play your cards right. Moving to Pyro Powerhouse Diluc, his combat style is all about weaving normal attacks with elemental skills to maximize damage, perfect for pairing with supports like Xing Chu to keep that Vaporize reaction rolling. His elemental burst costs low energy and covers a wide area, but watch out, it can push back lightweight enemies, which might mess with your positioning. Speaking of Hydro specialists, Ayato dishes out continuous Hydro-infused normal attacks after his elemental skill, with his burst buffing his attack damage. He's great for maintaining constant Hydro application to fuel elemental reactions on and off the field. For crowd control and powerful ranged attacks, Ganyu's charge shots pack a punch, especially with melt reactions against mobs, although she's vulnerable to interruptions while charging. Her elemental burst is a crowd pleaser, pulling enemies together and hitting them hard with precise cryo damage. Then there's Tignari, who's all about big damage from charged attacks and elemental bursts that spread dendro reactions all over the place. Plus, his taunts can distract enemies, giving your team a breather. Now, shifting to A-rank sub-DPS, Nilou excels in dendro core reactions like Bloom, but she's super niche, thriving only in dendro plus hydro teams. Meanwhile, Venti is the king of crowd control with powerful swirl damage and high energy recharge. Though he struggles against enemies that don't get pulled in easily, constellations help reduce enemy elemental resistances, making him even more deadly. Ganyu makes a repeat appearance here with her burst setting up freeze comps and off cooldown availability if you have enough energy recharge. Mona offers off-field hydro application and a burst that massively amplifies reaction damage, but her elemental skill area is limited. The Pyro Traveler is decent off-field pyro support, with a strong nuke burst, though unlocking and upgrading them isn't exactly newbie friendly. Beidou dishes out off-field electro arcs, but demands a lot of energy and battery support. Collie is your go-to for off-field dendro damage, but watch the small burst AoE that enemies can easily dodge. Lastly, Rosario applies off-field cryo grate for freeze or melt teams, and with Constellation 2, her burst lasts even longer. On the support front, Lanyan provides a sturdy, adaptable shield that reacts to swirling elements and can shred elemental resistances with the Viridescent Venera set. She doesn't provide off-field anemo though, and her shield duration is short, but Constellation 2 helps refresh those shields via normal attacks. Kokomi is a healing machine with strong off-field hydro application, essential for freeze and bloom comps. Farazan buffs anemo damage and lowers enemy anema resistance, but demands high energy investment unless you have her Constellation 6. And yes, Venti again, a staple for crowd control and team buffs, though he struggles with enemies that refuse to be pulled in. Diona covers shields, healing, and off-field cryo application, and becomes an elemental mastery buffer at Constellation 6. Yao Yao brings dendro application and healing, but her burst requires her to be on-field to work. Charlotte offers emergency healing in tight spots, while Layla gives very strong shields plus off-field damage tied to the tenacity of the Mil-Lilith artifact set. Break her shield and you lose both, so timing matters. And finally, Shinobu heals at intervals with a short cooldown, but otherwise only benefits your on-field character. So yeah, these A-rank folks are versatile, powerful, and with a bit of practice and the right teams, they can absolutely dominate the battlefield. They might not be the absolute gods of damage, but they're damn close. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, main DPS, Veresa, Mualani, Kinich, Chaska, Gaming, Navia are Hypham, Hu Tao, Liney, Ayaka, Riofusly, and Clorinde. Sub-DPS, Emily, Raiden, Fischl, Kiori, Yae Miko, Shinobu, and Ororon. Support Escoffier, Chevruz, Raiden, Xianyun, Bijou, Bona, Shenhe, Jean, and Sucrose. Alright, let's get into the big leagues, the S rank characters in Genshin Impact. These are the absolute powerhouses who make your enemies cry and your teammates cheer. Whether you're into plunging attacks, insane elemental bursts, or top tier support, this tier has it all. First up, Veressa, a plunge attacker with high base damage who doesn't rely on elemental reactions to shine. She's smooth and easy to use, so even casual players can unlock her potential with accessible buffers like Ianson or Chevreuse. No need for crazy investment, just jump in and start wrecking. Then there's Mualani, who's all about front-loaded damage, making her a beast against single targets and groups alike, especially when paired with vaporized setups. Bonus points for exploration with her great mobility, although Sharky's bite can sometimes miss if you're not careful. Keenich specializes in burning and burgeon teams, excelling in single target fights with a super mobile playstyle and a grappling hook that's great for exploration. But beware, if he's not on the right team, his damage output and resource gain take a serious hit. For versatility, Chaska shines in rainbow teams, converting her damage into pyro, hydro, electro, or cryo as needed. She's fantastic for exploration thanks to her flying ability in Natlan, but in AoE fights, her damage splits across enemies, which means she's better at single target damage. The 4-star Surprise Gaming can outshine many higher ranked characters at Constellation 6 with his plunging damage. He relies heavily on using his elemental burst off cooldown to keep the damage flowing, perfect for those who love a fast-paced playstyle. Navia dishes out massive front-loaded elemental skill damage capable of one-shotting medium foes and chunking bosses. She's flexible with team comps and not locked into monogeo, though her damage falls off over time, making her bursty rather than sustained. Of course, we can't forget the classic powerhouse Hu Tao, dealing huge single-target pyro damage by sacrificing some health with her skill-infused charged attacks. Her first constellation lets you spam charged attacks without stamina drain, which is a game changer for maintaining consistent DPS. On the icy side, Ayaka infuses her normal and charged attacks with cryo after sprinting, keeping her damage up nearly permanently. Her elemental burst scales massively, and with proper support and investment, she can rival the very best DPS in the game. Now, for the S-rank sub-DPS, Emily is a burning machine who keeps pyro ticking with over 100% uptime on her elemental skill, perfect for constant burning application. Raiden Shogun doubles up as a sub-DPS, triggering Hyper Bloom and other electro reactions effortlessly with her elemental skill. Fischl's Ravenoz deals continuous electro damage, but she needs full constellations to unlock his true potential. Meanwhile, Yai Miko is a damage dealer with a quick, hard-hitting elemental skill that fits perfectly into Dendro team comps for aggravate reactions. Shinobu is a must-have for teams relying on Hyperbloom, offering mobile electro application and healing with bonus elemental mastery scaling, freeing up space for another DPS. Ororon supports electro charge teams with personal damage and battery skills, but doesn't shine outside that niche. Finally, on the support front, Escoffier brings serious resistance shred and healing, but is locked to cryo and freeze comps. Chevreuse is a boss killer with resistance shredding, attack buffs, and healing tailored for overloaded teams, though she can't fix knockback issues. Raiden Shogun once again shines, boosting elemental burst damage and providing energy regeneration for non-stop rotations. Xianyan offers healing and buffs suited to plunging playstyles, while Baiju is a comfort healer with shielding and off-field dendro for reactions. Mona's elemental burst debuffs enemies to amplify your main DPS's damage and offers some crowd control. Shenhe is the go-to buffer for cryo teams, lowering physical and cryo resistance, although she needs constellations to fully unlock her potential. And of course, Jean with crowd control and powerful burst healing, whose Constellation 4 adds a Nemo resistance shred for a Nemo DPS. Sucrose wraps it all up with crowd control and team-wide elemental mastery buffs, turning your reaction damage through the roof. So yeah, if you're aiming to dominate the battlefield, these S-rank characters are the dream team you want. Whether you love smashing from the skies, weaving complex elemental combos, or supporting your crew like a pro, they've got you covered. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, main DPS Mavuika, Nuvalet, Dikti Sahituvalet, Skirk and Arlek Kino, sub DPS Furina, Yalan, Escoffier, Nahida, Xingqiu, Mavuika and Xiangling, support Furina, Silonen, Bennett, Iansen, Kazuha, Kisitlali, Nahida, and Zhongli. Alright, buckle up, because S+ rank characters in Genshin Impact are the absolute cream of the crop. These are the game changers who don't just play the game, they rewrite how it's played. Whether you want insane burst damage, slick utility, or top tier support, this list has the heavy hitters you need. Starting with Mavuika, who is basically the definition of flexible. Her burst damage scales absurdly high, letting her shine on-field, off-field, or as a quick swap DPS. She's a pyro powerhouse excelling in both vaporize and melt reactions, the two best damage combos out there. Plus, her exploration skills bundle up all the best parts of Natlan's roster into one smooth operator. Then we have Nuvalette, the one-man army with killer charged attack damage and insane self-sufficiency. His Constellation 1 clears out his few weaknesses, so once you invest, you're basically unstoppable. This guy can solo entire encounters without breaking a sweat. Skirk is a beast in freeze teams, ranking SS tier alongside Escoffier, but needs her support to truly dominate. Her combat is fluid and intuitive, making her not just powerful but also a joy to play. She's got exploration perks too, so she's not just a boss fighting machine. Arlecchino brings raw pyro damage that slaps hard even outside vaporize comps. Her swift normal attacks cover a wide area with great damage, making her viable in both single target and AoE fights. But beware, her high risk, high reward playstyle might scare off early game players not used to that adrenaline rush. Moving to S+ rank Sub-DPS, Furina stands out with her semi-infinite off-field hydro application thanks to cleverly timed cooldowns. While she might not outpace hydro legends like Xingqiu or Yellen, her damage scaling is nothing to sneeze at. Speaking of Yellen, she's the queen of setting up or triggering hydro elemental reactions with a powerful burst that buffs active characters. Her elemental skill groups enemies together and dishes out solid damage while feeding energy to her burst, making her incredibly efficient. Escoffier continues to dominate freeze teams with his off-field damage, resistance shred, and healing. He's a plug-and-play character who fits seamlessly into many compositions, though his effectiveness is a bit limited to freeze-centric teams. Nahida is a must-have for any Dendro team, especially with Constellation 2 unlocking powerful reaction buffs. Her elemental skill provides great off-field damage and can apply Dendro multiple times over a long duration, making her an invaluable asset for spreading Dendro chaos. On the support side, Furina doubles as a universal buffer for almost any team as long as you have a healer, opening new playstyles with her HP drain mechanic and easing exploration with her healing Pneuma form. Ilonen excels in resistance shredding across multiple elements and provides healing once conditions are met. She's also a vertical exploration ninja, perfect for those cliffside adventures. Of course, you've got your classics like Bennett, whose burst heals, buffs attack, and infuses pyro, especially nasty at Constellation 6. Iansun rivals Bennett in healing and attack buffs, but needs fast-moving characters to maximize her buffs, which follow the character rather than the position. Kazuha is the crowd control king, swirling elemental damage buffs and controlling enemy pools like a pro. His burst boosts elemental mastery in an area, amplifying your reaction damage across the board. Zitlali specializes in melt and freeze teams with a shield that lasts longer than its cooldown and focuses on offensive prowess rather than just defense. Nahida again makes the list, offering up to 250 elemental mastery inside her low-cost burst and unlocking powerful Dendro reaction buffs at Constellation 2. And last but not least, Zhongli, the Fortress of Shields. His shield is the strongest and most durable in the game, and also offers unconditional elemental resistance shred, making him a backbone support in practically any team. So there you have it. S+ rank characters don't just bring the heat, they bring a full inferno. If you're lucky enough to have them, you're basically setting yourself up for domination across every type of content in Genshin Impact. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.